Hi, our next video is about aging population, and it comes in three parts. This is part one. So apart from changes in the number of babies per family, the other big trend in population change is that people live longer. Here's a quote. In October 2009, Danish researchers on aging argued that more than half the babies born that year, in 2009, in developed countries will live to be 100 years old. Unquote. Another quote. The UN Central Forecast for Rich Countries is that by 2050, 1 out of 3 people will be over 65. Nearly 1 out of 10 will be over 80. Unquote. Another quote. The UN's latest 2-year forecast is that median age will rise from 29 to 38 by 2050. End of the quote. Median age is the age at which half the population is older and half is younger. So at the moment it's 29. Half the people are under 29, half are over. By 2050, half the people will be over 38 and half will be under. We saw in the introduction videos how the shape of Japan's population changes. These diagrams show the Japanese population at 1950 on the left, 2022 in the middle, and 2050 on the right. Let's look at this in more depth. There are two things happening at the same time. The number of children being born is going down. That means the next generation of children is smaller than the present one. If it happened over a long time, the graph would look like this triangle. An upside down triangle with the long edge at the top, the oldest generation, every generation after that being smaller. Second trend is people are living longer, so the top part of the triangle is moving upwards, making the whole triangle longer. So you can see in the diagram there's a new generation of older people. People didn't live that long in the past, and it's making the triangle wider and taller at the top end. So these diagrams show the Japanese population. If we draw a line at 85 years old, you can see above the line was 0 in 1950, more in 2022, and more again in 2050. The top of the triangle is getting bigger. Now let's add two horizontal lines. The first is at age 18 when people start to work. The second is at age 65 when people stop work and retire. So here's the two lines. If we add these two lines to the three graphs of Japan's population in 1950, 2022, and 2050, you can see the number of people above the top line is getting bigger and bigger. In other words, there are more and more old people who don't work anymore. What about the number of people between the two lines? It has changed shape a lot from the 1950s graph. They used to be mainly younger, but not anymore. The numbers in the middle haven't changed so much, but it has changed shape a lot from the 1950 graph. The middle ones are the income earners. In 1950, they were mainly using their income to raise children. Now they mainly use it to support old people. So this graph breaks the population into three groups. The blue at the top is the 60 and over. The red in the middle is 15 to 59-year-olds, who are basically the working population, and the greens at the bottom are the people who are too young to work. And you can see that in particular the top two, the red ones and the blue ones, have increased a lot in the period since 1950. So this whole graph is looking at a period of 100 years from 1950 to 2050. The green one climbs a little bit at the start, but is mostly flat. Now, but if we look at the total line at the bottom, so this is the total of over 60s plus below 15s, You can see that even though the mix has changed, the total of old plus young that are supported by the working population doesn't change much. The percentage for 2050 is the same as 100 years earlier, in 1950. And for the whole 100 years, it has only moved between 38% and 46%. This confirms the idea that the present workers are using their savings to support old people rather than have children themselves, because they can't afford to do both. This also suggests that if the number of oldies keeps increasing, which is extra expense, the number of children will keep reducing, which is extra savings, to cover the cost of the extra expense. So do people have less children because they just don't want to, or can't they afford to because they have to support all the old people? This in turn goes back to the question raised earlier in the course. Is the loss of maternal and paternal instinct real? Or have we replaced duty to children with duty to parents? The critical question is whether this new pattern is firstly temporary and we will go back to the old pattern in future, or secondly, still continuing and the pattern will get stronger and stronger, or thirdly, it's now in a new stable pattern. So let's look at the first possibility, that the new pattern is temporary and we will go back to the old pattern in future. The trend to a growing older generation is unlikely to end. But will parents start to have more children again? If we believe that the reasons for fewer children are economic, it's definitely possible. We have seen in the past a number of massive leaps in how easy it was for us to make things, improved productivity. Early in the course, we looked at the big jumps in productivity, how it got easier with coal in the 1800s and later electricity and then computers. We also looked at the possibility that the productivity gain about to happen from AI could be used to pay salaries to women to stay at home and have bigger families. Would that remove the choice between spending money to help your parents who are getting old or having children? So here is an example of how it works now. You get married at age 23, husband and wife both have good jobs, and they're using all the money that they save to help their parents who are getting old. They can't afford children. The way it could be in the future is you get married at age 23, husband and wife both have good jobs. When she's 25, the wife gives up her job and has a baby. The government pays her the same salary as when she was working. They still have to choose between having children and looking after their parents. If the government gives the wife the same salary as when she was working, their income stays the same. And previously, they were using all the money they saved to help their parents. But now they need to use that money to look after the children. There's no money left to support the parents. So they still have to choose between having children and looking after their parents. So, conclusion so far. To persuade couples to have more children and also support their parents when they're old, they need more money. It's not enough if the money for the wife to stop work to have children is only equal to what she gets now. That means it's more expensive, so it's less likely that the present situation is temporary and we will go back to the old pattern in future. What about the second option? The pattern continues and will get stronger and stronger. There are two conflicting forces. Firstly, there are still a lot of people in remote areas that have a lot of children. Also, Africa's trend is towards more children. If either of these groups started to follow the same behavior as everyone else, the present pattern would get stronger. The opposite force is that many governments look like they will do everything they can to stop population from falling. In the longer term, I would pick the forces to reduce population as being stronger, mainly because they are stronger right now, but nothing is certain. The third option was that we are now in a stable situation that will stay the same. That doesn't seem very likely. So where does that leave maternal or paternal instinct? No one knows. And this is the end, my friend. Part two coming next.